Hey guys, Will here, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our series on racing simulators. So as you can see beside me, I have the brand new, newly released, new to the market, Next Level Racing GTTrack Simulator Cockpit. So you might be wondering straight away, why do I have this when I just got an FGT a couple of weeks ago? Am I not happy with the FGT? No, that is not the case. I'm actually really happy with the FGT, as you would have seen in my review. The reason why I have this beside me today is that Next Level Racing have extremely kindly reached out to me and provided this for free for the purpose of doing an unboxing and assembly video for you guys, as well as our review a little bit further down the track once I've had a chance to have a good play with it. So we're really excited to put this one together and see how it compares to the FGT. Now obviously there's a couple of fundamental differences between the two cockpits. The most obvious thing that you'll see straight away is that this one comes with a proper bucket seat with racing harness as well, whereas the FGT is more of sort of a platform that you sit on. Now this is also compatible with the Motion Platform version 3 as well, which is a massive bonus over the FGT as well. But the downside to this cockpit compared to the FGT is that it doesn't have that adaptability between the Formula and the GT style seating positions. So over the next couple of videos you're going to be learning how to put this together, as well as how it compares to the FGT and what my overall impressions are of the product. So let's get stuck into the unboxing and assembly. So one thing that I do want to note before we get started unboxing here is that this is an extremely heavy box. It weighs about 60 kilograms, so you are going to need 2 or 3 people to bring it into your house, get it into position, that sort of thing. Don't try and move it on your own because you will put your back out and then you won't be able to use it. But the weight is a good thing because it means that the stuff that's inside the box is nice and solid. So heavy box, good, but just be careful. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to start pulling things out. We're going to lay everything out in front. We'll time lapse it while we take it all out of the box so it's not boring for you. And then we'll go through everything in detail and then start putting everything together. So let's get going. So inside the box we've got the seat obviously, and then the rest of the hardware here, which is all in the box underneath me. Now I've got to say straight off the bat, the seat is fantastic quality. It's really well constructed. It's got nice double line stitching all the way down the sides to keep it nice and strong, and it really does look like a racing seat out of a real car. So really impressed with that. So let's get the rest of the box undone, start putting things together. Okay, so I thought we'd take a quick look at the manual first, just to give you an idea of what you're going to be up against when you assemble this thing. Now, it is very, very well detailed in the manual. Everything is very clear. Gives you a list of all the stuff that you get there, and you'll see in a moment as well, it does come with a toolkit with everything that you're going to need to put it together as well, which is great. So we'll flip over and you can see it's also compatible with the Traction Plus Motion Platform, which I haven't seen much about yet, but I'm really excited to hopefully get my hands on that at some point in the future. Wink, wink. But yeah, look, I mean, the assembly instructions are really straightforward to follow. There's a separate set of instructions there to follow if you have a motion platform as well, so you can integrate that into the build. But yeah, look, I mean, it should be pretty straightforward. All the steps are very simple and easy to follow. If I can build something from IKEA, I shouldn't have too many problems building this. So we'll have a look now at what we actually get in the kit. So as I mentioned before, you get a nice little toolkit here, which comes with all of the bolts, all the washers, some Velcro straps to secure cables later on, nuts and bolts, Allen keys, wrenches, everything that you're going to need to assemble it. So that's really good. Here we've got our pedal plate, which is exactly the same pedal plate as you get with the FGT. The pedal support bracket as well, with the full adjustability as we had with the FGT as well. So lots of different presets there which you can adjust up and down. We've got our side rails here as well. Now this piece I believe is for the motion platform. We're not going to use that at the moment. And just all the various different pieces here. The front panel, the side rails, the assembly here, which the actual wheel mounts on as well. And again, you can see massive range of adjustability on the side there, but we'll show you that in more detail later on. The side rails here, which you can adjust up and down. So heaps and heaps of different presets there for holes. And it's nice to see that they've got individually drilled threads here rather than just a big slot, because that will give it added rigidity as well. Now, a big thing with this cockpit is obviously the rigidity. Here we've got our shifter mount and handbrake mount here, and which I believe will mount onto this as a side bracket. And then we've got our base plate as well, which is nice and sturdy. We've also got a nice little set of caster wheels, which come included as well. We've got a little bag of rubber feet as well, which we can use. A little bag of bolts here as well, which is for the motion platform, so we're not going to be using that. And then last of all, I just want to show you quickly as well, we've got the seat belts, which I was actually really impressed with these. They're really nice quality, and I'll hold these up to the camera for you to give you a closer look. I've got to admit, I'm really impressed with these. So you can see, very solid construction, exactly the same kind of thread that you'd get with a real seatbelt in a real car, and nice solid clickers as well that click in just like on a real car. So we'll look at that in more detail a little bit later on once we've got everything put together, but I just wanted to show you that quickly now, because it's little details like that make such a difference and make it, you know, seem less like a toy and more like a serious piece of kit. So really impressed with that as well. But we'll put those back in the box and we can get started putting everything together. So we start off by installing the side rails into the base plate. So these just slot into position, pretty self-explanatory. And we're going to slide a M8 60mm bolt through each one of the slots. So always make sure we install a washer on each bolt, and there should be 8 in total, so 4 on either side. Now, we don't want to tighten these down to begin with. We just want to do them up finger tight with a nut on the back. The reason for this is it's very difficult to install the pedal plate and the seat if you've tightened everything down already. So we'll wait until we've installed those before we tighten the surrounding bolts down. So once we've done this, we remove the little plastic caps on the side rails and slot these into position as well. Again, very self-explanatory. 2 60mm M8 bolts on either side. Again, just finger tight with some nuts on the back. Now we want to install the 15mm M8 bolts with a washer once again in either of the slots that you'll see looking through the holes in the top underneath the plastic covers. So just be very careful here that you don't drop these down inside. Now don't over tighten these as well, just leave them relatively loose for now, because if you over tighten them when everything else is loose, it's very easy to bend them. So just leave them loose for now. We'll tighten them down at the very end of the installation and replace those plastic covers. So now we move on to the rear panel here. So again, 60mm M8 bolts with a washer, finger tight, very self-explanatory. Now you'll also see here I'm using a cardboard box to sit everything on top of. The bolts and washers are quite oily, so you just want to be careful you don't stain your carpet. Now we move on to the support rails for the steering wheel. So these just go into position. Again, 15mm M8 bolts. Now you're going to end up adjusting these later on anyway, so just get it to the height that you think is going to be about right for you. Now you shouldn't need to force these, they should go in very easily. If you're having to force it, that means you're cross-threading it. You need to stop immediately and try again. Take your time, get these installed. It's very simple, but just don't cross-thread them, because if you do that, you'll damage the threads and then you'll have to order new replacement bars. So once that's done, we move on to the pedal plate. Starting off with the pivot point at the back, we just slot that through. I installed it right up the very back, but depending on your height, you'll end up moving it around. So again, we're gonna do these up nice and loose. 60mm bolts once again with a nut on the back. Slide these through on either side, and then we can put the bolt through on the other side. Now it's a little bit tricky to get your hand in there, but just take your time. Pretty self-explanatory once again. Now we move on to the wheel support panel. So again, on the pivot point, 2 bolts, 60mm M8s. Nuts on the back again, and then just adjust it so that it's relatively flat. You'll probably end up adjusting this later on once you got your wheel installed, but yeah, just get it into the rough position that you think it's going to be for now. Now, if you're pretty happy with the position, you can actually tighten these ones down because it won't impact the rest of the installation. So once we've done that, we install the actual pedal plate onto the support bracket. So 2 15mm M8 bolts with a washer on either side. And again, just adjust this into the rough position that you think it's going to end up being. You'll probably end up adjusting this later on once you've got your pedal set installed. Now there are some additional bolts which we'll go through later on in the installation, but for now you just want to leave it at the 2 on either side. So with the pedal plate now installed, we can tighten all of the bolts at the front of the assembly. We don't want to tighten the 4 bolts at the back though, because we need to leave those loose to install the seat later on. But this is a good time to tighten up everything from the middle onwards. So you've got the 4 bolts on either side that you originally installed for the side support brackets, plus the 2 on either side for the rear portions, the pedal plate bolts, and also the 15mm bolts that go down through the top holes. So next you've got a decision to make. If you want to install the plastic feet, you'd go ahead and do that at this point, or you can install your 8 caster wheels. Now I'm going to go with the caster wheels simply because it makes it a little bit more movable, and I figure if you've got them, why not? So we install these with the supplied square washers and just screw them into place with the supplied wrench. It's a little bit tedious, it takes a bit of time, but it's not difficult. Just take your time, don't cross thread them, and you won't have any problems. So 4 on either side. So with that done, now we can move on to assembling our shifter and handbrake assembly. So depending on whether you're driving a right-hand drive or left-hand drive vehicle will determine the orientation that you set this up. I've got it set up for it being on my left-hand side. So this time we want to use an M8 60mm with a washer and one of our star washers as well, so it locks down really tight. So 3 on either side. Now we just want to be careful here. You might have a little bit of difficulty putting bolts through to mount your shifter later on. So probably want to leave these loose until you actually install the shifter, just to save you having to undo them again. So once that's done, 3 more with star washers and regular washers again at the bottom. So 6 bolts in total. And again, just do them up hand tight with the nuts for now, because you're probably going to end up adjusting the position of this later on once you've got everything else set up. Next up, I'm installing the Buttkicker Gamer 2 assembly. So this mounts underneath the seat. You can either mount it at the front or the back. Now you don't need to install this, but I figure if I'm going to get one of these later on in the future, I may as well install this now. It doesn't get in the way of anything else. So again, 2 60mm M8 bolts, washer and nut on either side, and you can tighten these down, no problem tightening these right away. You want to make sure you do them up nice and tight, because obviously any vibration is going to transfer through and make lots of noise. So next we move on to installing the seat. This should push into position pretty easily. 1 M8 60mm bolt on either side. Now these actually screw into a nut cert on either side, so there's no nut required. And if you are planning on installing the seat belt, you want to leave the rear bolts out for now. So these can be tightened down, and once they're tightened, you can also tighten the 2 60mm bolts on either side at the back. So home stretch now, moving on to the seat belt. So install it through the holes in the back of the chair. Use the 20mm M8 bolts provided with a washer on either side. Now, if you've already installed the bolts on the back of the seat, you'll need to remove these to install the lap sash. So what I did was I installed a bolt through with a washer in between as well. So 2 washers on either side, just to allow a little bit of movement without scratching the paint. So we can tighten these down. And then we move on to the final step, which is installing the long support bolts for the pedal plate. So you're probably going to want to do this after you've already installed your pedals onto your pedal plate. These just screw through. We've got a washer and a nut on the top, another nut underneath, which will screw up to support, and then it just screws in. 1 on either side. And now the most important part of all, peeling off the labels on the stickers. So if you've done everything correctly, you'll have a couple of parts left over. You'll have the mounting bracket for your handbrake and shifter assembly, which is optional depending on the handbrake and shifter that you're using. You'll also have the mounting bracket for the motion platform, provided that you haven't already installed it. You'll have your caster wheels or your plastic feet, depending on which you've installed, and the bolts for the motion platform as well. And that's it. Okay guys, so that is the unboxing and assembly of the GTTrack from Next Level Racing. I've got to say, assembly wise, really simple, really easy to put together and no problems at all. All the threads line up, there was no problem with cross threading, everything's nice and solid and sturdy, and the instructions are really easy to follow as well. So overall, a really positive experience. Sometimes things like this can be very frustrating and tedious to put together, but it wasn't the case with this at all. If you can put together an IKEA shelf, you will have absolutely no problem putting this together at all. And of course, if you do have problems, they have some videos online. You can always watch this video again a couple of times as well to help you along, but they're always there to help you as well if you've got any specific concerns. Now, I guess the two big questions that people are going to have regarding this is adjustability and rigidity, and I'm happy to say that I'm very impressed with both of these so far. Now, obviously, I'm going to be moving all of my gear across to this rig once I've got the monitor stand here to review as well, and we'll review everything together, but I can tell you straight away, it's really, really rigid. I mean, I'm not the strongest guy in the world, but I can pull on that as hard as I can. And the only movement that you see there is the entire rig moving on the carpet. You can see if you look at the chair, everything kind of moves together. I can pull on that with all of my weight. I can even actually pull my weight up on it and it does not move at all. The pedal plate as well is really, really solid with that extra support that you've got there as well. And I think having these extra side rails here really makes a massive difference. And the really impressive thing about it is that you haven't sacrificed adjustability to achieve that rigidity. So the only thing that does move a little bit is just the seat back. And it doesn't move any more than you would have in a regular sort of street car, something like that. So we'll review that in a little bit more detail once we've got all the gear across, but I definitely don't see that being a problem. And the seat feels like it's really solidly constructed and there's no problems there at all. It's all really nice and high quality. So in terms of adjustability, you've got the up and down movement on the wheel platform, which can go up to about here and down all the way to the bottom as well. You got the pedal plate, which you can pitch up and down as you would have seen when we were putting things together. You can adjust the pitch of the wheel as well if you want to have a sort of recline looking up at a screen or looking down at a screen. It all depends on how you want to have it set up and your height and weight and things like that. Now in terms of the seat itself, you've got this really cool lever on the side here, just like you'd have in a regular car, that you can move all the way forward and all the way back as well. Now one thing that I want to mention here is that if you do recline the seat and move the pedal plate up, it's almost the same seating position as you have with the FGT, which really impressed me. That was one concern that I had with this rig, is that I was going to really miss the Formula seating position. But I think that once I've got all the gear moved across, having the wheel here, having the pedals moved up a little bit from the position that they're in at the moment and the seat reclined like this, I don't think I'm going to have that problem. I don't think I'm actually going to miss it at all. Now the seat can also be moved forward and back with a huge range of motion is here. So you just pull on the lever underneath like you would in your street car, move it forward and back, and you can also, if there's not enough adjustment there, you can undo the 4 bolts on the sides and actually move it about 2 inches forward and back on here as well. So having the seat pushed back like this is the most rear position. You can move it forward about 2 inches from here and then forward on here as well. So that would have you right up against the wheel. So a massive scope of overall adjustment. Now one more thing that I do want to show you quickly is the seat belt as well, because this is really cool. So put it over your shoulders like this. It's a 4-point harness, not a 5-point, so it doesn't have the one coming between your legs. And I was a little bit disappointed about that at first, but then I realized that having something dangling in there all the time is distracting and annoying. It gets in the way when you're not using the seat belt, and it's really not necessary for a sim rig. So anyway, we put our shoulders through, put the little pad across, strap it in, tighten up the sides to make sure it's the right tension for us. And I need to do some more fine tuning of the adjustment here, but you get the idea. Pull down on the straps here and we're in position. Nice and sturdy, nice and wide so it won't cut into your shoulders while you're moving around, and it really does keep you strapped into the rig for that really kind of realistic feel. So guys, if you found this video interesting and useful, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well so you don't miss the next one. As I mentioned before, we're going to be moving all of our gear across, doing a full review of this as well as a comparison with the FGT. So stay tuned for that. We've got a whole bunch of other sim racing related videos coming, as well as some overclocking videos in the pipeline as well, and some more PC related stuff. So stick around for that. Now also, I wanted to just quickly mention we do have a 10% discount voucher code in the description below for Next Level Racing as well, so check that out if you're wanting to buy one of these rigs. Also wanted to quickly mention that we do now have a Twitch channel as well, where I'm doing some online sim racing, so if you want to check that out as well, you're more than welcome to watch some of the racing. In case you weren't aware, we also now have a Discord channel, so you can jump in the conversation online there. Link is in the description below, and we also might be organising some online racing there as well, so you can kick my ass online. But that is it for this video. I hope you found it interesting and useful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.